We have to go back!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Flashback Flicks Retro Movie Podcast. I'm Ricky.
I'm Grayson.
And it's Halloween. And that's why I'm assuming, not because of the pandemic, but they're releasing the latest of the 007 movies, No Time to Die. So we, of course, decided to hit the double Venn diagram of relevant movie and Halloween by reviewing the 1992 comedic gothic horror movie, Death Becomes Her.
Oh, wow. And to quote George McFly, Ricky, you make it sound so easy. Yeah, if only we had planned like that middle of the Venn diagram. But Death Becomes Her?
Mm-hmm. Grayson, I think you in particular will love this movie more than you probably already did from watching it, because it's directed by one of your favorite directors, Robert Zemeckis.
Oh, Bobby Z making a comeback on the podcast. Very exciting. First episode ever was a Bobby Z flick.
That's right.
Yeah.
Our formatting was so loose.
Oh yeah.
So
not like now.
We've changed so much. So if you don't know about Death Becomes Her, I'm going to do this. We don't typically do this at the top of every episode because we just assume that it's going to happen. But watch the movie. Like, just watch it, because I had a really great experience knowing very little about this movie other than the title, and so many moments got to just be presented organically for me. So go ahead and watch the movie if you haven't already, and then come back and join us over here.
Yeah, that's a good call. And I'm going to kind of flip things, because I know normally, Ricky, we go into like all of the stats and stuff, the research behind it. But I think for this one, you and I were so in the dark, spooky about this movie. I thought Death Becomes Her was a drama, for one. Like, stone cold drama. And then also when I saw both versions of the poster / cover, I was like, oh my goodness, this is that movie from Blockbuster / Cox Video as a kid, where I was like, something about the cover of like the hand coming through the stomach and the twisted head. I was like, as a kid, I was like, I'm interested, but also never want to see this. It scared me in a very juvenile way. But what a delight. What a delight, Ricky, to have no context whatsoever. We barely knew the cast. We learned the cast when we were doing the tag for the last episode. And I don't know how this went so far off of our radars.
Yeah, it was a thrill, pun always intended, to watch this movie. And Grayson, we're going to start back with some history, give you a quick synopsis. Death Becomes Her is a 1992 comedic gothic horror directed by Robert Zemeckis and stars Goldie Hawn, Meryl Streep, and Bruce Willis, all in 1992, before Bruce Willis became known as That Dead Guy. And it kind of tells the story of three people trapped in a kind of love triangle that eventually turns murderous to some degree. That's a very brief, vague, but accurate description of this movie.
But not till like halfway through.
Right. Yeah. It starts out so differently than how it ends. Oh, what a journey. So the movie was written originally by David Koepp. He went on to write other big Hollywood movies like Jurassic Park, Mission Impossible, and Spider-Man. Death Becomes Her was produced, and he had very modest aspirations for this movie. He says that him and co-writer Martin Donovan had nothing but just a bunch of credit card debt to their name, and at most we're thinking about maybe a $5 million picture. Spoiler alert, it wasn't that. Then comes in Robert Zemeckis. He actually just got done finished making the Back to the Future sequels back to back, and he was excited about the script and thought this was an opportunity for him to do something a little bit more mature than he was used to. And so with his involvement, the movie became way bigger than the writers had ever expected it to be. Fun fact about the time on set, Robert Zemeckis would go around saying before each shoot, "Hold on to your butts." And And that's where the Jurassic Park catchphrase comes in.
Wow.
It's from production of this movie. And because of this movie, and this is the thing that blew my mind, Death Becomes Her was a technologically complex film. And if you watch it, you'll understand, because all of the CGI graphics that they did was done by who else? Industrial Lights and Magic. But it was the first film where computer-generated skin texture was used.
Oh, dang. Not Darkman? I saw it in that movie. He computer generates skin.
Right. No, but he
Went his face off.
It's
yeah.
different.
But I'm glad they won the Oscar for their effects too. So time well spent.
Well, they used that technology in Jurassic Park the year later in 1993.
So, Ricky, what I'm hearing is that without Death Becomes Her, we would not have had the Jurassic Park that we know and love.
That is 100% what I'm saying.
That has both... Jurassic Park has everything I look for in a movie, which is skin technology and quotes about butts. And it's because of Death Becomes Her.
It's because of Death Becomes Her. Yes. And because it was so technologically complex, it's a medium that not many people are familiar with, not the way that it is today. Meryl Streep, for example, hated it. She is quoted saying, "This was my first, my last, and my only working with CGI. I think it was tedious. Whatever concentration you can apply to that kind of comedy is just shredded. You stand there like a piece of machinery. They should get machinery to do it. I loved how it turned out, but it's not fun to act like a lampstand." She compares it to being at the dentist, and that's what Streep thinks about working with computer-generated technology.
Yeah, that's why she passed on the role of Gollum, from what I hear.
Yes, 100%. That was the only thing that prevented her from doing that. There was also tons of animatronics modeled, created by Amalgamated Dynamics, and prosthetic makeup effects on Meryl Streep to create the look of a twisted neck. I mean, there were just so many things that were happening with that movie. Way more than $5 million. They had a budget of, how about you double the $55 million. They opened up #1 at the box office the same weekend as Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Bebe's Kids. And they went on to earn a worldwide box office of $149 million. Though it was received well in the box office, it wasn't as successful as, 90s films do with weird box office stuff. But it did become a, drum roll please, an occult classic, if you will.
Wow.
And has been a fan of so many people, including the people who are hosting this podcast right now. It was phenomenal. What a great movie.
Yeah. With so many, the cast itself, like I'd say the core 4 in it, like we mentioned, Meryl Streep, Bruce Willis, Goldie Hawn, but Isabella Rossellini in it as well. As a catalyst for a lot of these events. And then there's uncredited great performances too, like Sidney Pollack as the ER doctor.
Yes.
Who's hilarious. And so I did not know what to expect. And I don't know what I was expecting, but it exceeded whatever I was not expecting. Just to say, I liked it.
Now, you remember bookstores, right? So you know how sometimes they would have at the front of a bookstore, like, go on a date with a book, and they would just take a book and they would wrap it in just like brown butcher paper, so you didn't know what the book was, but it just told you the synopsis of it, or what the themes were. It's just like a murder mystery, but you didn't know what the book was, and you just basically choose the book and kind of have a fun little kitschy moment with the book. I feel like that was what happened with Death Becomes Her, because I knew the title, but almost nothing else. I didn't read anything else. I just tried to find where the movie was available online, and then I watched it. I was like, this movie has so quickly become my favorite movie.
Yeah.
Just the more you watch it, the more you realize that, Tim Burton, very brilliant, has a very distinct style, but like, he does not own the dark humor genre by any stretch of imagination. In fact, I want more from Robert Zemeckis in this style because it was so good, and I just loved it. I had such a blast watching this movie.
And when I look at the commonalities between a lot of Robert Zemeckis films too, I think his strength is really setting up the rules of the world.
Yes.
And we're very clear on what these characters can and can't do with their, spoiler alert, immortality.
Yeah.
And so being able to play in that world is great. Just like Back to the Future, very clear rules about what you can and can't do. And even Castaway, where it's like, this is the rules for surviving on the island. And he's consistent with that. So I just love how we're able to drop into a premise in this Robert Zemeckis world and say, all right, if this is true, what else is true about these characters and who they are and their jealousies and their flaws? And what if you took incredibly flawed people and gave them the gift of living forever? What would happen? Basically Eternals. So a third part of that Venn diagram, carve it out. Yep. This is for that. A lot of trailers coming out for that. Yep.
Oh man. Yeah. And the cool thing I really appreciated about this movie was how quickly they get into the dynamics of all the characters. Like there's very little setup other than, the movie just opens up and you see people leaving theater talking about like, oh, can you believe this person? And it was just, they just are off the races. And I really appreciated how we were immediately thrown into this premise driven conflict between these two old friends who are like frenemies. And then you also throw in just eternal life and the fountain of youth, and then you see how that affects the friendship. And that's the thing that I thought was so fun, is that I feel like some other director might have focused more on the secret society that exists of all the people who live forever, because the rules, the one simple elixir would make you immortal. You would never need to worry about anything about like aging or dying, and the elixir would make you young and beautiful forever. But after 10 years, you must disappear like Elvis, Tupac, I'm sure, to make sure
Jim Morrison was in there.
Yeah. To make sure that no one figures out that you become immortal. And then you have these two friends who are so vain that they get in the way of this society because they, first off, try to kill each other, and then secondly, just want to look beautiful. And they get Bruce Willis, who gave one of my favorite performances I've ever seen Bruce Willis in, to be the one to make the touch-ups, the tune-ups.
Right. So everyone has a very clear space in that relationship and can offer something, which is why they need them, instead of just saying, I want you out of my life forever. They're stuck in this this triangle. And they say start a story as late as you can in the timeline. And then another school of thought is, well, just show us all of the key scenes from an event. And that's what I think the strength of this story is too, where it's like 7 years go by from the first scene. It's like another 7. And then at the beginning you're kind of figuring it out, because it's not like you're seeing when these characters started dating or anything like that. It's just like, this is when Ernest met Madeline, but then jumped to their wedding. Like, we don't need to see the courtship. It works really well for this, not as well for Fan Four Stick. But being able to identify those key moments that you need to tell a complete story is just the masterful storytelling, and not get bogged down in that, but use it as a vehicle for the comedy is ultimately the goal here, because it's a genuinely funny movie.
Yeah. And the movie, I mean, didn't start that way either. I mean, originally, the movie was heavily re-edited after negative feedback at test screenings. So Tracy Ullman, who is a good friend of Meryl Streep, has a whole role in this movie, and she even shows up in some trailers, even on the back of the VHS art, completely edited out of the movie. And the entire ending was changed, and so they really crafted this story to make it its best core story that I think a lot of people really connected to and resonated with. And I'm just so happy that this movie exists and that we got to review it on the podcast. Because sometimes when I'm watching a movie, I'm watching it and I'm just like looking at different threads or themes. I'm studying it, or I'm just examining it. But I was just smiling like pretty much the entire time I was watching this movie. The performances, some of the just very subtle physical humor where they Goldie Hawn's character is walking over on the couch after she has a giant hole in her stomach, and she sits in between this spear. It's just such a great visual gag that happens, or even just some of the lines that people deliver in just a very interesting way. It's just so fun. It felt like it was both campy but also surrealist, but also just absurd but real and grounded. And like it just felt like it was this whole world that I believed immediately existed, just because of everything that they put towards it, largely with the characters. And I just really appreciate that.
Yeah, the performances are really what ground these characters in a lot of ways. So that's why it's interesting to me to learn that Bruce Willis replaced Kevin Kline in
that's
that
right.
role. And I think it worked out for the best. I think it all happened. I was looking through on the visual effects side, because we had mentioned that they won the Oscar for it. They beat out Batman Returns, so Burton, and Alien 3 for the visual effects. So that's high praise.
Oh yeah, high praise. Yeah, when you can make Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn, and the choreography that they did for those VFX. There are several times where I'm just looking at this movie and I'm thinking, how did they do this in 1992? Someone please explain this to me, because honestly, looks like witchcraft. Because there are things that I know you can do today with like futuristic editing and with rotoscoping and all this other stuff, but I'm just like, I don't know what computers were able to do in 1992, but I didn't think they could do this, and that was very impressive.
Yeah. Well, and some of it, you mentioned the animatronics, they tried to like wire up some of the body transformations with like for Meryl Streep, when she's looking in the mirror, they had this like robotic bra thing that was supposed to help. Ultimately, it didn't work. And there's just like, who is it? It was one of the people in wardrobe, I think, we just had to like kind of press on her from the side. Like, you're in show business, kid. This is what it is. Congrats, you made it.
Now, Grayson, before we move forward into our typical segments, I need to ask you, if you had the opportunity to drink a simple elixir that would make you immortal, would you drink it?
No, I wouldn't. I really wouldn't.
What if I get bored?
Yeah, exactly. Like all the stuff that he brings up as to like, wait a minute. And when there's twice that I think he almost does it or doesn't do something. And then characters say like one line too much. So really, this is a story about the dangers of overselling. Yeah, like to live forever. And he's like, wait a minute, I don't want to live forever. Like I part of what makes life so precious is its finite nature, to go out there and make every day count. So why would you want to throw that away and then be trapped in a broken shell forever? So no, I'll pass. I'll make this a limited series, not an indefinite run.
Oh man. Yeah, that would be tough. I would say I wouldn't. Or at the very least, I would wonder, because this is how my brain works. I wonder what would happen if you drank half of it. Like, because she gave the little demo, the little for samples free.
Yeah.
And so that didn't make him immortal. So I'd be like, okay, well,
Oh, yeah. The regeneration element. Yeah. Yeah. I'd use it like a topical cream if that's available. I'd mix it in something like a mayo paste. And that'd be fine. Yeah, I'll do that. I would take a thing if it was like not immortality, but like to never be sick, right? Or like regenerate. But when I get to a certain age range, it's like, yeah, no, you might die. Or even, I mean, dying from physical, like maybe that's the thing too. Like they just could not die no matter what.
Right.
And I think that prospect is really terrifying because then you just end up like you're just your brain, right? So when your shell gets all broken down, like what is your existence? That's terrifying to me. But if it's like, no, you're going to be super healthy and you can just like, you'll keep going as long as you're going well. But if you incur too much damage immediately and don't put this topical cream on, then yeah, you're done. I don't know. Yeah. I just don't like the permanence of the whole prospect. That feels like not a life sentence, but an afterlife sentence.
Ooh, I like it. Yeah, so I would take the third option, which is I like your topical cream. So topical cream option, please. Yeah. I think that would be cool. I think I would take more risks, you know? So it's like, oh, okay, well, I got a little bit more time.
Yeah. Whereas like with this, like you would think if you're immortal, oh, I can take risks. But with them, it's actually the opposite. Because you're immortal, you don't want to take as many risks. Because if you mess up your leg, like it's messed up for a long time or something like that, as we see in the movie. So it's not helpful, not what you would want. But I guess if you're Isabella Rossellini and you're just chilling in a mansion all the time and like your biggest threat is catching cold because you didn't bundle up enough during flu season, put a sweater on or something, socks at the least, then yeah, there's that you gotta look out for. What shocked me was how many people were in this society.
Oh, that was such a great moment where they track the camera and you just see this party. I have a party going on upstairs and you just see the room be filled with people.
There's like at least 1,000 people in there.
Minimum.
And you're like, oh, it's not a secret society. I mean, they don't want it really to be a secret. They're trying to like make all this money because scary mansions aren't cheap. So no. I don't even know. I don't even know anymore, Ricky. Oof. Yeah. Topical cream. Just a hand cream. Maybe some under eye cream. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it would be really great to treat simple woundings like, a shovel to the head, the shotgun to the stomach, or a blast from a head cannon. Headcanon is a part of the show where we share with you unique ideas about the movie and untold stories based on evidence provided by the film. So I did some movie math, Grayson, and the way that the movie ends is that they end up around the year 2036.
Yeah.
Because the story starts in the 70s. And then it goes 12 years, and then they do another jump to, or I think 14 years, and then I think they jump 37 years, because it's 37 years from 1992.
Okay.
And so, actually, no, I take it back. It's 2029. So 2029 is where they end up year-wise. So my headcanon is that Meryl Streep has some answers. And I'm looking forward to seeing Meryl Streep in 2029 and Goldie Hawn just hanging out. But also it fit so perfectly just that they went on to say, oh, he lived his life to the fullest, and he always told us about seeing dead people in California. And I was like, well, headcanon, I just
was there the whole time.
It was, I mean, come on. But because originally I was like, maybe because he's so risk adverse, he's gonna go on to become John McClane. Like, I'm gonna live a new life entirely.
They do die hard. It's hard for them to die.
Oh man. Oh, can you imagine if those franchises switched names?
It's the old Rogue One Suicide Squad problem. Just flip it around. Yeah.
Yes.
Similarly, my headcanon was that there was a moment that the audiences weren't privy to, where Meryl Streep's character and Bruce Willis's character reconcile physically. And eventually, I think a baby would have been born from them. And that baby would have part of this regenerative, immortal aspect to their DNA.
Yeah.
And that is how you get David from Unbreakable.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Interesting.
So, yeah. That's how that worked.
Man.
That's how that. And if you think about Goldie Hawn's character, when did she die? Like when it's revealed, when she's submerged in water because of the Unbreakable thing. Well, he doesn't like water. That's the old David Dunn kryptonite. Yeah.
Oh wow. Oh, that's good. That's real good. Man, I like that. Solid. Huh.
Yeah. So it's the hybrid there.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, what happens if you just have a little bit of it, right?
Just a little bit.
A little bit. Just touch up the cuticles and some of the age spots. But if it was half your DNA, you'd probably be pretty incredible. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the other thing, headcanon wise. I was wondering like where the elixir came from, because when Meryl Streep first took it, I was thinking, oh, cool, maybe like, what's going to happen here, like how much of this is there, but it looks like that's just a serving size that they just have access to. And so my other headcanon is that it's really just an alternate batch of Tab Cola, because it just really made me really hankering for a Tab Cola. I was like, man, I could really go for a Tab.
Let's get some Tab in there. Yeah, my guess is that this is interesting headcanon then. So there's that pool, and there's a lot of like kind of water feel around it, I guess.
Right.
More Unbreakable stuff, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. They're refilling these vials, and so maybe that house was built on the location for the Fountain of Youth, right?
Oh.
So like, oh, this is why it's headquarters. We just keep refilling it here. And it's kind of the whole idea of like building this fortress around the secret destination. Yeah, that would make sense. But to explore that would have violated what you said earlier about how it's not really about all that stuff. It's about the relationship. It's not about the secret society or the backstory of Isabella Rossellini's character, which it stays purposefully vague because it's got more mystery. We know how old she is, but it's not like we flash back to when she was a kid. Like, what's the purpose of that? We wouldn't need it. So yeah, but that's interesting. Yeah. Where did it come from? I was looking up creatures, like in mythology that had purple blood. I was like, maybe it's like unicorn blood, but in Harry Potter, that's like silver and stuff like that. But I think the Fountain of Youth angle probably makes the most sense.
That's really good.
But in true Zemeckis form, it is the flux capacitor move of like, it's what makes it work. It's what makes it work. Don't understand. It's what makes it work. All right.
Got it.
Little purple drink, some Tab.
Yeah. That's what it takes to get the thing, and it works. Like, it
makes it possible.
And now we're going to go to the part of the show where we like to talk to you about recasts and remakes.
Remake.
If this movie were to be made today, who would you cast? What would the storyline be? I think we all know what's gonna. Actually, maybe we don't. So, a fun thing that I learned that I didn't know before is that Goldie Hawn, she has a daughter. very famous daughter. And that daughter's name is Kate Hudson. And as soon as I was stumbling across that, I said, oh, well, yes, please. I would very much like this. I would love for them to basically just pick up where they left off. And it has now been just a new modern take on this, especially because it's all about image. And I really think that they would have a lot of fun with what they can do graphically. I would love to see a modern take on this with Kate Hudson.
Yeah, keep it in the family.
And only because I just randomly saw a random thing. Jessica Biel as well would be really fun in this. Honestly, oh yeah. Oh, I'm blanking on his name, but I'm going to Google it in enough time to make this filler really worth it. So you know how you have people who come into your mind, Grayson, where you think, oh yeah, this person's the person, and their name is around the tip of your tongue. That name for me is William Jackson Harper, Chidi from The Good Place.
Oh yeah.
I think that he would be really great with Bruce Willis's role, just because he played that kind of just furiousness, but also intensity and meticulousness, but also I just love the way that Bruce Willis portrayed him as someone who is both impassioned but also completely depleted. I think that pairing would be really fun. Ooh, and Zazie Beetz is there.
I mean, she could be the Isabella Rossellini character.
That would be great. Yeah, just call it Death Becomes Her, a new potion, or
Bottoms Up.
Ooh, that would be good. Death Becomes Her, Bottoms Up. Yeah.
Reassembled.
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 Oh yeah, that's good. I see what you did there. Yeah.
For my recasting, for the Goldie Hawn character, I had Emma Stone. I thought that I got a lot of Emma Stone vibes from that character. For Bruce Willis's character, I had Lakeith Stanfield, because especially his speed in Sorry to Bother You, where he is welcomed into a secret society that changes bodies, and I think he could play both sides of that, like being really successful, but then also the quiet wrestling with his demon side. So I think he'd be great. And then I think the Meryl Streep track got me pretty immediately to Emily Blunt, to play the like the Broadway actress, and then be at home, but also play a lot of that comedy that Emily Blunt's so great at. So yeah, I thought that was my core three for that casting. But then I was also thinking about who would you bring into that society now with like modern updates. And some of them are classic, like the Elvis reference and all that. But if you did remake it and had that scene, I think you just got to have Keanu Reeves walking around, just hanging out.
Keanu Reeves, Paul Rudd, they're just like,
eating a chicken wrap.
You have more bruschetta? Yeah, I think that would be. Oh yeah, that would be great. Yes. Oh, as always, I think that this podcast is really just a public service for Hollywood. Listen, Hollywood, you don't have to work so hard. We're here doing the heavy lifting, and if you ever want to just send a check our way, just let us know, all of Hollywood. Thank you.
But if you send a check, I also need to check photo ID. It's the policy for checks.
Yes.
Much like Albertsons in the 90s.
Yeah. And 2 forms of IDs would be preferable.
Government
library
issue.
card will suffice.
City government. Yeah. Yearbook photos don't cut it. No. That is, unless it was a public school, because then I guess technically that it's through a state organization.
Yeah. We'll also, depending on the circumstances, we'll accept death certificates, and we're back.
Oh, we did it.
And now we're going to go into our final segment, which is giving you our reasons to recommend. So, Grayson, why would you recommend Death Becomes Her?
I recommend Death Becomes Her because while it is very funny, at its core is more about the gift of life and using it, right?
Yeah.
So all these characters at some point in their journey waste part of their life, right? They throw it away in different ways, but it's the characters that say, I'm going to take this potion and live forever, that once they do that, really lose the value of life, and kind of cheapen it. And their actions reflect that. What I love so much about this movie is the ending. So, like we said, please watch this movie first. But the ending is so beautiful, because it's the eulogy, right? I love that eulogy scene where you get to. It's one of the times that like it actually works out to tell, don't show, instead of the other way around, where you're discovering everything that happened to Bruce Willis's character after the events here through his eulogy. And the eulogist is saying that, for him, life began at 50, and he was able to do all these amazing things and help out all these people. And we never see any of that. But the lesson we get is when given the opportunity for immortality, he said, no, I can do more with the limited amount of time that I have left on this earth. And it made him appreciate life even more. So I really loved that. I thought that was a beautiful way to end this. And then also immediately following that scene, one of the most disturbing things I've seen, where someone falls down some stairs and breaks every bone in their body, and we're back to Unbreakable. It is so disturbing, though, just ending up Deadpool style on the sidewalk.
Man.
But in some ways, like, even though that's for them low stakes, kind of, because they'll regenerate a little bit over time, and it's going to take a long time, that kind of stuff, or get patched back together, because there is a healing factor to that thing, but it's not like to that degree. Anyway, the whole idea is very terrifying, but everyone in some way gets what they wanted, whether it's friendship, whether it's just togetherness, to have like a partner in something. And in the case of Bruce Willis's character, it's respect. He ultimately got the respect that neither partner ever afforded him. And it was respect through the community, because he said, well, I'm going to put my talents to good use. And he lived in a respectful way. So anyway, all of them were able to get what they wanted, even if it seems like a bleak ending, especially for the two women. They actually end up getting everything they wanted, which is they're never going to die. Their beauties in their eyes never going to fade, because at a certain point they see what they want to see. And more importantly, they're not going to be alone, which they both were terrified of. Everything from the Cuckoo's Nest style institution scenes to alone in the dressing room. You have these isolated moments, or even the comment on the bed that's already half made in Meryl Streep's mansion. There's a fear of isolation and being alone. Now they can be together forever. And while Dr. Melville was trying to escape through different vices and such, he didn't have to escape. He could exit gracefully. So there's all these layers that they build into it, where it can be really funny, but also super thoughtful along the way. So that's why I recommend Death Becomes Her.
Man, that's so good. That was great, Grayson. I have so little to add. I just love this movie. It was so unexpectedly funny. I love the visual humor that they do in this movie. Even just some of the scripting of like, hey, I'm gonna have him look. I'll give him some liveliness and vibrance, and they're like, "Oh, sir, we can't do that. He has to be recognizable." I'm just like, "Oh, that's so great!" Just the wordplay, the script is so fun, and so many of the visual gags that they attempted in this like era where it's not like the standard. It's easy to create certain effects and visuals when you know that it's been done before, but to discover figuring out how skin texture looks like in a computer generated way, and to make it believable is, to pioneer that is no small feat. So I also appreciate all the risks that this movie went and took on, because not many people were clamoring for this type of movie, I don't think. But they made it, and I'm so very glad that they did. So yeah, watch Death Becomes Her. Own it on whatever device that you're able to get it on, because I want to watch this movie now every single Halloween.
Yeah. And it has legitimately disturbing images if you're looking for something that plays kind of like that Addams Family deal, where it's like it's funny, but also like, yeah, that was pretty disturbing. Or Beetlejuice, very Beetlejuice-esque.
Yes,
yeah,
very Beetlejuice-esque. Yeah. All right, and that is our review of the 1992 movie Death Becomes Her. Let us know what you remember about Death Becomes Her on our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We are at Flashback Flicks. Actually, Grayson, do we need to? What's a spooky URL that we can, or what's a spooky handle we can change our name to during Halloween?
I think for this episode, it would be Fleshback Flicks.
Ooh, it would be.
All that computer-generated skin going around.
Oh, yeah.
What's our secret? Spray paint.
So if we change our name to Fleshback Flicks, then you'll know why. But otherwise, on all the social media platforms, we are at Flashback Flicks. And it would mean so much to us if you could leave us a rating review on your podcasting platform of choice. It helps the podcast out tremendously. It helps this podcast actually live on. It's kind of like an elixir for eternal life, but with podcasts.
Yeah.
So, less stakes. And you probably won't get bored not if you take the elixir, but if you give us the elixir, give the podcast, give the code, the ones and zeros, the elixir. On a scale of 1 to 5 holes in the stomach, or
I need to hear this podcast like I need a hole in the stomach. Let's say like 1 to 5 Isabella Rossellini necklaces. Like 5, good. More. You're gonna get sick. You gotta be chilly.
Yeah,
One's not enough.
This marble doesn't insulate well, I don't imagine.
Oh.
Let us know what you thought of the podcast. And be sure to tune in next time right here on the Flashback Flicks Retro Movie Podcast. Until then, remember to be kind and rewind. Next time on the Flashback Flicks Retro Movie Podcast. Ooh.
With James Bond coming back in No Time to Die and Halloween Kills making its way into theaters, we thought it'd be appropriate to take a look at a super successful spy franchise with Mike Myers. Of course, we're talking about Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery.
Oh, Grayson, that is how we do it.
There's a lot.
We don't do it on the James Bond week. We do it on the Halloween Kills week. That's our podcast. Yeah. All right, whenever it's on the nose, I mean, sometimes yes, but other times you wait a week.
Yeah. Do it after. See how much people liked the thing you're referencing.